distinguished dignitaries on the podium, honorable guests from the community, fellow physicians, my dear nurses, the other staff of the hospital, and ladies and gentlemen. It's truly a great honor to be amidst you all once again celebrating this year the International Women's Day. Unfortunately, because of the paucity of time and several of our dignitaries have other commitments today, we have to kind of go through the program a little briskly as possible. I'd have loved to talk on this subject for almost 5 to 6 hours, truly, but I would do that on some other time. But on today, let us talk about what is gender equality. Truly, gender equality is a question of power, the power that has been jealously guarded by men for millennia. That is the truth. It has been very jealously guarded by men for so many millennia. So hence the 21st century should be the century of equality. Now, why this year is celebrated? Obviously because there have been differences, there has been discrimination, there has been inequality for centuries to come. Probably one of the key things or the root cause of this problem, I suspect and I believe, is patriarchy. Patriarchy, a social system that has pervaded almost every continent, every culture, every race at all times, where the male progeny is a line of inheritance, perhaps responsible for so many different things today that we are standing up for. It really I feel sometimes, should we celebrate this, constantly fighting for this injustice? Why not women be considered to be equal? It is easier said than done. The statistics today are imperiling across the world. Femicide is growing at an alarming proportion in spite of all the modern technology and interventions. What is happening? You'll be surprised to know that 1 in 3 women in their lifetime suffer from severe violence. 137 women across the world are killed every day by one of their own family members. The situation, sometimes if you look at it, is truly dark. There is an agonizing gender gap across recruitment, gender gap across professional institutions, gender gap across working environment, and gender gap with pay scales. The WHO declares, or the United Nations said, that for every man, women earn only 77 cents per dollar. You can translate that. It may not be very true. In the Indian circumstances, it could be much worse. But that's the reality. So according to this data, they project it will be 2255 by the time this gender gap is bridged in terms of pay parity in this world, which means to say that my grandchildren and their grandchildren will not see the light of the day, in terms of bridging this gender gap. So something has to be drastically done. Like this, there are many, many issues that we find, unfortunately. But thanks to what is happening today, the powerful women that we have seen in the display in the hallways that we have decorated so nicely and honoring them, many of them who are activists today, some who started this in the 19th century and passed away. I salute for their courage. I salute for their marching spirit, who have defined that women should have and women should be equal. And they're not only in this part of the continent, but in the rest of the world who fought for the women's equality, and we will continue to do so. The great hope is this. The Generation Z, where many of them are sitting here, the young men and women, they are realizing this. They are fighting for the cause. They're joining the bandwagon. And most recently, we have seen the Me Too movement across the world. Even a great country like America, with its Hollywood fame, the actors and actresses could not escape from this biggest malady that we see, or a social evil. And we have seen what really triggered off the Me Too movement from that world. So given that, whether it is a situation of rape, sexual assault, all of these things, it depends upon how a given country and how the legal system is well set up. We cannot escape from the truth. Back in 2012, it was not too far away, the whole Nirbhaya movement that led to Kavita Krishnan, one of the reformists who formed the India's Women's Liberation Organization, who has led the cause and went to the extent of Supreme Court by championing for changing the laws in terms of punishment and whatnot. So there are several women leaders in our country who are now today are one of the biggest social activists. Now, are there any bright spots? There are many bright spots. Let me just give you in the next 30 seconds or 60 seconds, what are the bright spots? The bright spots are women are certainly, entering or equalizing in certain areas. For example, healthcare. Healthcare is a great example across the world. Now, why do I say this? In today, if you look at the medical colleges, 51.5% of the entrants to medical students are girls or young women. And this is the same thing that is happening in the United States and most of the rest of the world. India has produced 4,500 more women doctors in the last few years than men. Although allopathic women doctors are only 17% in this country when compared to 37% in America. So it's a long way to go. And if you take this 17%, there's only 0.6 women per 10,000 population in the rural areas in India. We have a long way to go. What is the other bright spot? If you look at healthcare organizations and institutions in America, today 55% of the CEOs and hospital administrators are women. 80% of the purchase or management of revenue on these hospitals is spearheaded by women. But unfortunately, when it comes to the CEOs, that percentage dwindles down to only 13 or 14%. But it is increasing. The other brighter spot, for the first time, 4 women from India have been included in the Fortune 100 list. Nirmala Sitharaman, Falguni Nair, Mrs. Nadar, and of course, Kiran Mazumdar. So 4%. We never had this many number of people in the Fortune 100. So also in the Fortune 500. In the Fortune 500, there are 41 women who are CEOs today. And very interestingly, America's 2 largest pharmacy companies are led by women CEOs today. So the world is changing. The world is changing from the fundamental reason because of this activism, because of this recognition, because of the thing as human beings, women contribute immensely from their intelligence, from their social dimension, from their psychologies, from their emotional perspective. So much it is contributed. Unfortunately, we don't realize it. Now, interestingly, one of the big investment banking company from the US just ruled last year, unless and until you have a woman on the board of the company, they will not take the organization to an IPO. So such things are being mandated. Now, I feel that they should not come out of a mandate. It should be but natural. Now, women have been recognized financially, that they perform extremely well when they're on the boards or when they're in the organizations. Another interesting tidbit, this is a good kind of elevation for our women. The Harvard study, not long ago, declared for patients who are more than 65 years of age, women physicians, when they tend to them, the mortality is significantly less when compared to the men physicians, and their return back to the hospital in 30 days is significantly less. Sorry, my colleagues, I'm very sorry, my apologies for the gender, but we have to catch up with our women at the end of the day. So these are several bright spots that women were not given the opportunity for eons to come, for centuries to come at the end of the day, and this discrimination and inequality.
Very wonderful introduction. And at the outset, thank you so much, Dr. Anuradha, for having me here. I'm extremely humbled to be in the presence of Dr. Guru Reddy Garu, Joel, Andrew, great friends, and Mr. Akbaruddin, who I have been hearing about for almost 5 years now. And I'm really fortunate that I actually get an opportunity to share a stage with all you dignitaries today. So thank you so much, Dr. Reddy. To start out with International Women, I head VHub for the government of Telangana. And I've never been in front of so many doctors at one time. So it's slightly intimidating for me. I've been in front of many doctors, but I would respectfully say, I hope none of you are PhDs here, but of the other kind, and it was mostly engineers. So to start out with, I'm an engineer. I am from Hyderabad the minute I graduated. Without backlogs, like every self-respecting Hyderabadi student, I went to the US. And I worked there in hardware engineering and not software. I don't know anything about software at all. I realized that, at a point I realized that, as an Indian and as a woman in the Valley, I was always the only one in the team. So I wanted to blend in with the other Indians in the Valley because everybody was writing software and I was not doing it. So I went to my manager and I said, today I want to learn software. He only told me one thing at that point in time. Just look around you. How many Indian women are in your team? We had a team of 18 people, and I was the only Indian woman because our lab hours were almost like 16 to 18 hours. We were always in the lab. We were designing circuits. It was really fun. And he said, how many are around you? I said, nobody. And then how many women are in your team? I said, about 3 of us. So then he told me one thing. Back, I think it was in 2006, he told me that we can hire a lot of software engineers, but we can't get a lot of Indian women hardware engineers. So keep to your USP. Don't try to get into general things because everybody is doing it. So that has been a great lesson for me, and that is something that I've always followed. So I always try to make sure that, whatever I'm doing, I'm actually bringing and adding a lot of value and bringing a lot of personality and a lot of learning to whatever role I'm assigned to. So once I was in the US, it was all going great. It was extremely amazing. And I had all the trappings of a typical NRI and a typical NRI. But I'm from Telangana when the state was formed. Like every NRI, I was giving advice on how things should be done. Like, it'll be great if India does this, Telangana does that, in US this happens, in Europe this happens, so much more, right? I was giving a lot of gyan. So then our honorable minister was visiting the valley. And he only said one thing. A lot of people talk. Talk is cheap. If I give you an opportunity, would you come back? So without much ado, after 15 years, I packed my bags. In 2 days, I was back in Hyderabad before he actually came back to Hyderabad. So that is how my journey with the government began. The reason I'm trying to tell you all this is because I never realized in my entire journey of being a only woman on the team, never realized I was a women engineer. I never realized that, I was obviously children, family, everything happened. I never realized that, they were separate things. I did not try to keep my family and life separate. I didn't never kind of made one thing or the other priority. I just went with the flow, and I realized that, when I wanted to do something, I need to do all things in one day, and if some days work takes priority, we follow work, and on other days, if family takes priority, we follow family. So anyway, in 2 days, I was back in Hyderabad, and again, I realized I was the only woman on the team. We had about 35 men on our team. The reason I highlight this again is because on record, government of Telangana gives a lot of incentives for women who want to create startups and industries. To give you a small snippet, when you are trying to set up an industry, government actually gives a woman entrepreneur 10% additional capital investment subsidy. So imagine if you're trying to set up something in 10 crores and you're getting an additional 10% subsidy because you're a women entrepreneur. So we were getting a lot of files. I was handling electronics because that is a subject I knew best. And we were getting a lot of files, and we were getting a lot of women who were directors. And as I was the women on the other side, I asked the people who brought the file, where is the director who actually signed on this file, to add to what Dr. Guru was speaking. So yes, there is a mandate on having more women as directors, but many of them are not voting or acting directors. They're only signing directors. So, so when we had this kind of a conversation, they felt that, madam is really strict. She doesn't know the ways of the land. But anyway, begrudgingly, they brought their partners or the directors along. So when I asked the ladies who signed, who were actually, I think, about 70 to 75% owners of the company, when we asked them, what is it that you know about the company? Oh, ma'am, I just don't do much. I just sign. And my husband takes care of all the financials. My son is now in engineering. The minute he graduates, he will go to US, come back and take care of the company. But then we asked her, what is it that you will be doing? She keeps signing. So we noticed this trend not just in the most educated class, but also women from various socioeconomic strata. And this was a conversation that we were having a lot in the office. And that is when, instead of just talking about the problems, we thought we should create an avenue to solve these problems. And that is how WeHub was created. And this was created actually during the Global Entrepreneurship Summit in 2017. How many of you know about it? Global Entrepreneurship Summit? Cool. I'll tell you a little bit of a simpler way of understanding it. You know when Ivanka Trump was in Hyderabad, that big conference, that is when WeHub was announced. And when that was announced, I was actually sitting in the audience and thinking, I wonder who will be heading it. And the reason I was thinking this is because I went to St. Anne's school, girls' school. I went to St. Anne's girls' college. Then when I got to engineering, my dad said I should join a girls' college. I said, never in my life will I do anything with women. And I wish too hard. So, now I actually head WeHub for the government of Telangana. So when I started with WeHub, again, I'm going to tell you all these snippets of my kind of life so far is because I want to address each of the experience that I had into how we can actually go forward. So when I started with WeHub, the first thing I did is, what does entrepreneurship mean? And to understand that, I hired a coach for myself because I'm not from government. I do not understand women entrepreneurship industries very much. So I hired a coach for myself to actually explain what the various models of women entrepreneurship in India were. So he actually told me, madam, before we start, there is an acronym you need to understand. And I was like, okay, I know everything. I have traveled the world. I know everything. Come on, bring it on. He said, there is a model called PPP. Do you know about it? I said, of course I know. Do you know about PPP model? Right? So then I said, obviously, I said public-private partnerships. This is so simple, right? No. And he said, no, madam, that is where you are sorely mistaken. When it comes to women entrepreneurship initiatives in government, it is pickles, papads, petticoats, and sanitary pads. I'm like, okay, this is very unique. This is super nice. And obviously, I don't have expertise in any of these areas. But that is the day I actually realized that WeHub has to do something which will actually change the narrative around women entrepreneurship. We need to move from a conversation around entrepreneurship is equal to empowerment to entrepreneurship is equal to financial enablement. And for the past 4 years, we have worked with women who make pickles, papads, and petticoats and sanitary pads, but we made sure that each of them has about 5 to 6 lakhs of turnover every month, and each of them creates about 10 to 12 jobs. Why? Because it is not bad to do all these things. It is actually bad because these women are actually in the conventional sectors and are not creating enterprises, isn't it? We need to make sure that more and more women are creating enterprises and are part of the economic workforce as leaders. That is something that we've been working on. And that is the PPP model that we continue to work on. But in addition to that, we also have incubated over 238 urban tech startups. And the maximum turnover one of our startups actually has is about, I think, 14 crores a year. And she started out, I think, in 2015 along with us. So that has been a little bit of a journey of mine with WeHub. And we were actually incorporated on Women's Day 2018. So it is actually our 4th anniversary here. And every year when Women's Day rolls around, we are actually running to 20 different events, right? And then when we ask why only us, they say, madam, not too many women leaders. We just keep calling the same people over again and all that. And then that is the second thing we start doing. We actually stopped celebrating our anniversary too much on March 8th, and we try to do it a little bit before or after. The reason is the conversation around women entrepreneurship, women leadership, women everything should go beyond Women's Day, something that we are trying to mainstream. Okay? But however, I completely realize, and many of us should also realize that thinking of Women's Day as a token thing is a privilege that we all have, because we've never faced any of the challenges that have actually many of the women in the ecosystem today actually face. So to counter these kind of challenges that many women have, there are a few things that we can actually try to do. To start out with, I'm among very, very learned women and extremely talented people here. But however, there are a few things that I would like to request that we all talk about. The first thing is, I think a lot of times women or men should stop talking about challenges for women. Please think about it. The reason I say this is because challenges were actually faced by I think, my grandmom. My mom, I think not so much, but I think by my mom. The reason I say this is because my grandmother did not have an opportunity to choose who she was getting married to, but she had an opportunity to make sure that her children were educated. right? She saw opportunity in spite of the challenges. The second thing is my mother. Obviously, she studied, but she never worked anywhere. The reason is there were certain challenges that she had. But she took the opportunity to raise both of us, my brother and I, in a manner where for me, I never realized that I was a girl. Right? I was never asked why I was doing something. I was always asked when I was starting to do something. So that inculcated a lot of confidence in me. So we should actually move from the conversation around challenges for women to how do we create opportunities on the platforms each of us have. I'm not talking about man or women. I'm just talking about all of us who are very privileged to assemble here. How do we create more opportunities for the people who are facing challenges and for people who do not have the opportunities we have? That is one thing. Second thing, which is very important, is that a lot of times, I think working women have this more than anybody else. We are often asked about work-life balance. And if I may ask somebody, do you guys believe in work-life balance and how do we tackle that? Anuradha Reddy ma'am, Meera Jappandi, you start. What does work-life balance mean?
Work-life balance, women are generally multitasking and they juggle work and the profession together, which is very difficult, but still we try to manage it.
Yeah. So ma'am, one small request is that to everybody, especially the women, don't try to chase a concept of work-life balance. It does not exist. You'll kill yourself trying to achieve it. So please go with the flow. Some days work takes precedence, some days life does. So please go with the flow. And third thing, if somebody calls you multitasker, please don't fall for it. The reason I tell you this, and the reason I tell you this again and again, is because once you start taking more than the task that you're supposed to do, that task will always be yours and you will obviously be multitaskers. Okay? So please make sure that work distribution is equal. At work, at home, even among children. So make sure that we are not becoming multitaskers alone. Everybody in the family is a multitasker. Everybody at work is a multitasker. And last and most important thing, Anuradha ma'am actually asked me to talk only about WeHub. I'm so sorry, I'm going off script. I didn't have a script. But the last and most important thing, I think, again, is very relevant for many of us. I don't know how it is in the medical profession, is that do not run away from conflict. So the reason I say this is because many times the participation of women in workforce is extremely low, because whenever there is a challenge, there is a conflict, and we express this issue at home, what is the first thing that the family suggests? If something is not going well at work or you have an issue, what is the first thing that the family suggests? Sorry? Sit at home. Okay, all right, okay, cool. Look for the next one. So, one suggestion, please do not run away from conflict, and that doesn't mean get into fights. Please have a conversation that the person you have an issue with. The reason is, whenever there are conflicts or it is mainly due to the difference in perspectives. So please sit across the table, have a conversation, and continue to be in the workforce, okay? And last and most important request for all the people in the room, all the people, not just women, but men as well. Please do not expect perfect circumstances anywhere, especially at work. The thing is, when we want to go to work, and I see this a lot in our entrepreneurs also, when we want to go to work, we want to say that, it should fit our life. It should be from 9 to 5. 5:01, no. 5:05, not at all. 6, worst place ever. So please do not expect perfect circumstances, be it in terms of your boss, be it in terms of the kind of work, be it the kind of timings. The reason is, if everything is perfect, why are you needed? A robot can do it, right? So please make sure that you are actually taking the best opportunity that comes your way and making it perfect for you. And make sure that you're perfect for the role that you're actually getting. So that is a few things that I wanted to talk to you about. I'm sure I'll keep talking. But in addition to all this, I also have to do my product plug. I had an initiative for the government known as WeHub. And we work primarily with women entrepreneurs. And one of the invitations I have for many of the people in the room here is that we also work a lot on entrepreneurs as well. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the concept of entrepreneurship. I hope you are. Running out of time. Okay, got it. They're asking me to leave. Her writing is very tiny. So the concept of entrepreneurship. So if you want to pursue something, while you're doing your day jobs, you can always come and work with us. We'll make sure that we take care of all your business needs, and obviously you're technically brilliant. We'll work with you in making sure that many of you also are able to indulge in startups or any unique ideas that you have. We will help create and ground startups with that idea that you have. So that is something that I wanted to say, and wishing you all a wonderful Women's Day. And let's work towards creating a very gender equal and hopefully a gender blind world someday soon. So thanks so much.
Good evening, Chairman Dr. Reddy, distinguished guests on the stage, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. Warm wishes on Women's Day for all the amazing female employees of Continental Hospitals drawn from different departments, and more so to all the female consultant doctors who have rendered yeoman's service untiringly, as stated by Divya Devanathan, especially during the pandemic time. You all have done great job. Without you, our enthusiasm would not have been to this extent. It is often said organizations need women workforce, but let me make a statement. In fact, healthcare institutions cannot function or operational without the magical touch of the women force. It is, whether it is India or anywhere else in the world, it is the normal principle. On the eve of the 9th International Women's Day being celebrated at Continental Hospitals, Continental has 1,200 employees. 60% of these employees are married. And in compliance with the regulations of Government of India, we take the honors as becoming the first quaternary care hospital in twin states of Telangana and Andhra Pradesh to have the creche inaugurated today on this auspicious day. To do the honors, I request Dr. Ananda Shankar Jayant and the CEO of VHUB to come and inaugurate this from this particular stage itself.
And I am honored to be here. I want to thank Dr. Guru Reddy. I want to also say how pleased I am to be in among such distinguished panelists, such as Ms. Divya Devarajan, and also Sri Syed Akbaruddin, and also Dr. Ananda Shankar Jayant, who is a Padma Shri awardee, so not many of those around. So thank you. And I want to also say that I also come from a family of doctors, and my sister reminds me that I am the underachiever in the family. So I have great respect for what you do. The theme today, I understand, is Break the Bias. It's about gender equity, equality, and inclusion. So as we celebrate International Women's Day, this is a great opportunity to look at equity and inclusion holistically. Now, in my organization, the U.S. Department of State, which is the equivalent of the Ministry of External Affairs, we call it DEIA, which is Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Accessibility. That's a lot of acronyms, and as we become better DEIA practitioners, we will increase women's representation and better women's experience in the workforce. When we become better practitioners, all boats rise. And for me, DEIA is about efforts that are both sustained and systematic. And these two concepts overlap. But what does that mean to me? Systemic is, what I mean is systemic. Systemic is, first of all, efforts that are data-driven and therefore measurable, that you have a baseline, that you can tell, do you have more women in management positions now than you did 5 years ago or 10 years ago? Also systemic is monitoring progress throughout a career life cycle. That means recruitment, training, pay scales, promotion, assignments, and then also, and I know this is an assignment, but it's a different breed of assignment, and that's leadership positions. Because it's one thing to say, oh, we recruited all these women, and now you're on your own. And then you wonder, well, where are the women leaders 10, 20 years later? And that system needs to be systemic, and needs to be nurturing. And then also in the Department of State, there's a newly organized Office of Diversity and Inclusion, and they are involved in all of these lines of effort. So sustained, what does sustained mean to me? It means building a culture of diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility. And while certain elements such as, let's say, anti-harassment training should be mandated, you can't build a culture on mandated obeisance to diversity. Rather, you need to persuade. Diverse organizations are more productive, they are more profitable, they are more fulfilling places to work. And so this is not a kumbaya goal. This is something that is absolutely measurable. And I find that when I have diverse voices around me and women around me, I make better decisions. Those inputs are invaluable. Then there are the skills building, which are applicable throughout life, but especially to diversity, equity, inclusion. First of all, meaningful listening skills. So many of us don't listen. We're thinking about the next thing we want to say, and we miss really important information. There's also the convening skills. When you have a meeting, of bringing out that quiet person in the corner who has really important information. So basically, when I end a meeting, I try and scan the room. What's the body language? Do they think I'm an idiot? And then are they agreeing? Are they disagreeing? And I want to pull someone out of the corner, and maybe she is not saying much, and encourage her to do that. Because if you don't, you're not going to get the inputs that you need. And finally, look at the function of your organization. The State Department represents America to the world. So we should look like America and have that diversity. It is a tool of diplomacy. And the hospital takes care of patients. And patients come in all genders, ages, conditions, religions, and colors. And you want patients to feel comfortable, especially because, you know, as much as I love Dr. Guru, hospitals are kind of my least favorite places to be. And so you want to feel comfortable. And when you have diverse employees that match up with diverse patients, you're going to have a better experience. So the bottom line here is that when we really proactively promote women and really truly value as colleagues and make sure that we monitor equality through a career cycle, we're going to have a much stronger organization, and an organization that we all want to work in. So thank you very much.
Mr. Reifman, and looking forward to hearing Dr. Fleming and senior colleague, Mr. Akbaruddin. So on this day, which happens to be once a year, though it's something that we need to do every day, I bring to you the blessings of three goddesses. Goddesses that we all represent, each and every one of us. I bring to you the blessings of Goddess Lakshmi, not as goddess of wealth, but as a goddess of well-being and life itself. I bring to you the blessings of Goddess Saraswati, the goddess of knowledge, wisdom, memory, perception, learning, and the arts. And I bring to you the blessing of Goddess Durga, the goddess of energy, life-giving energy, power, courage, and wisdom. So on this Women's Day, I bring to you the strength of the goddesses, the goddess that we all can be, will be, and must be. It is indeed interesting to hear the talks earlier, and I come from the space of two different careers. One being a mainline bureaucrat from the Ministry of Railways, being the only lady officer, as we are called, when I joined, bursting through a very male bastion, which I call macho, mustachioed, and muscular, the railway traffic service. So when I burst through that service, having taken the exams for ALAC on Osmania University, I was ignored for 2 days. I was made to sit in the control room where operations happen, and the very large male force did not really know what to do with me. But I'm getting ahead of the story. Let me rewind a bit. I was introduced to the world of dance at the young age of 4, when in a temple in Sikandrabad, a lady looked at me and told my mother that I had large eyes and I should be introduced to classical dance. Well, looking back, it seems like great market-savvy teacher who hung out in temples and found chubby young kids. But jokes apart, I was introduced to the world of dance at 4. With a few medals and scholarships behind me, I was invited to study at Kalakshetra, Chennai, at the age of 11. And I was very excited. I wanted to be a doctor, but then I also wanted to be a dancer. So my father looked at me and said, "Will you be a school dropout?" Because Kalakshetra did not have full-time studies. It was a full-time dance school. And I said, no, I will study. And with 6 years of Bharatanatyam at Kalakshetra from the age of 11 to 17, I also went on to do matriculation and pre-university and graduation through correspondence course, long-distance education. Back in Hyderabad, I started teaching dance at the age of 17 and burst through another barrier, another bias that only seniors can teach and youngsters can't. But I said, well, I'm going to do it, and that's what I started with 6 students, and it's been many students have passed out from our institution. I wanted to make dance a complete career, but the ROI, the return on investment in arts, is far higher. I mean, it's terrible, because there is nothing, the outflow of expenditure for dance is far higher than the inflow I could command as a young dancer. So I decided to upscale and went on to Osmania University to do a master's. I had done a graduation in commerce, and try and do commerce and accountancy through correspondence, you're never going to be able to balance your ledgers. My sundries were always more than the other. So I said, no, commerce is not my cup of tea. And I chose to do ancient Indian history, culture, and archaeology because there's culture in it. So on the campus of Osmania, where I also was a great follower of Mr. Akbaruddin's father, who was serving as the professor of journalism then. So while I was there on the campus, there were many friends who took the exams that I had no clue about. The exams were the Union Public Service Commission exams, which selects the administrators of the country. Both of us have come through that. Now, as I said, I wrote the exams and I got selected to join the Indian Railway Traffic Service, and that's how I landed in that office with everyone ignoring me. So it was rather hilarious because in the control room, there's, they have these kind of phones those days where you could, press a button and the whole line down, say from here to Kazipet, could hear what you'd said, because that was the easiest way of communication then. Everyone could hear your orders together, so there was no confusion. So after 2 days of being ignored, I picked up the phone and I very nervously said hello, And there was dead silence on the track. And they said, "Ma'am, sorry, residents vachesindi." And they put the phone down. They banged the phone down. They thought it had come to someone's house. They said "sir" to me for a whole month. I mean, we still say "sir" and "ma'am" in bureaucracy, so they said "sir" to me for a whole month. And when I would go on these train inspections, to any of these coal mines or anything like that, which was part of our duties, they would say, we would stop somewhere for lunch at some of the places, and someone would come and serve you lunch, and they would say "sir" to all the officers, "sir, gulab jam, sir, puri," And then they'd come to me and say, "Baby, kya khaoge?" They thought I was someone's daughter. So, it was not baby, but baby kya khaoge. But seriously, well, that was a long time ago. But what was happening simultaneously, as I was learning to understand systems, to understand railway, mainline train operations, loading, unloading, hierarchy, orders given, etc., even train accidents for that matter, bureaucracy was magnetic and enthralling. And then I had very well-meaning colleagues tell me that, "Abhi bas bhi karo, tumhara dance wance band karo. Now that you've arrived in an all-India service job, I don't think you need to dance." But I had made a promise to myself that I'm not going to give up my dance, come what may. So I did this navigating my dance rehearsals and office timing and negotiating with my bosses and my friends and my colleagues to do 6 o'clock rehearsals, 9 o'clock office, finish work at 6 o'clock and come back for class at 7. So this was how, sorry for the railway metaphor, but this was how I tread 2 tracks all along, the railways and dance. So what I did through the years is I engaged with dance 360 degrees in all its colors. Now, someone was saying you should not multitask. I think I'm happy with multitasking. If it suits you, go for it. Well, in 2008, something else happened with me, and I was diagnosed with carcinoma of the breast. And that day, I was rather, of course, angry, upset, irritated, wept copious tears, and asked my husband, Jayant, I said, "Is this the end of the road?" Not so much as in life, as in end of the road for my dance. So he said, "No, take this hiatus, spend your 2 years finishing your treatment, and you'll be back to doing what you love most." But an artist knows that a break in an artist's career is a rather dicey thing. And besides, dance was such an integral part of me that I said, I'm not going to stop. So what I did that particular evening, taking courage from my husband's positive energies, I wiped my tears and I declared to the world at large 3 affirmations. I've said this before, and I'm repeating it. The 3 affirmations, loud affirmations I made is, I'm going to ride this out. Cancer, I'm going to ride out cancer. Cancer will not ride me. The second affirmation I said is, I will not say why me. We always say why me, isn't it? I said, I got the Padma Shri in 2007. I never ever said why me. I'm like, thank you very much. But why should I say why me when I was diagnosed with cancer? And I said, no, why me? Do you realize we do that, friends? When something wonderful happens, we never say why me. But when something horrible happens to us, that's the first thing we do. Arey Bhagwan, ye mere saath hi kyun kiya tumne? So I said, no, why me? And the third thing I said is, cancer is 1 page in my book, and it's not the book of my life. So these 3 affirmations helped me change my mind, moved my focus from cancer to being a dancer. I replaced C with D and shifted my focus completely to dance through cancer. I danced weeks after surgery, through radiation, through chemotherapy, through later therapies for 2 years, and nothing stopped me. Now, why am I sharing this with you? It's not to pat my back, but the fact is that the business of life will challenge all of us. It is the business of life. And therein lies our greatest learning. It's during challenges that our learning curve really changes. And to ride over that challenge, that setback, that speed breaker, whatever you call it, is you need something to hold you over that. And to hold you over that setback, I truly believe what will help you ride out is your unique passion, your unique talent. And that unique passion and talent, as some of the speakers said earlier, is something that you need to nourish and cherish and grow and find now. And not give it up. The trick is to not give it up. Invariably, when we land in all these wonderful jobs, like you, like all of us, the first thing we sacrifice at the altar of that fantastic job, at the first salary slip you get, the first thing you sacrifice is your uniqueness. You want to align and confirm and be seen as one unidimensional vision of what the organization wants of you. Fair enough. But beyond the official space, there is another space that is a very enriching, very required space, that is your personal space, your family space, your social space. And those spaces need to be nourished and cherished, and more importantly, that little core, which is you, needs to be nourished. And I make a small distinction between our core competency, which you as doctors, as medical professionals, and we as administrators, that's our core competency. We are trained for it. But there is something else, this unique passion that I'm talking about, is your core strength. And there's a subtle difference between the two. And that core strength is really what sits at the base of your spine, holding your hand over any setback that life will throw at us. If it doesn't, you're really damn lucky. But life will throw challenges at us. And I believe that invariably we surrender when crisis hits us. We choose very well. We choose our saris well, we choose our breakfast, our lunch, our meals well, we choose our spouses well. But when a crisis comes, we do not know how to react to it, how to behave with it, how to deal with it. We succumb to that negative energy. And at that point of time, what is important is how you navigate it. To navigate it, a core strength is required. Because, I'm reminded of, what Richard Dawkins said. So, what is the purpose of existence? Someone asked him, and he said, the purpose of every living organism is to contribute to the growth and evolution of its species. That's what Dawkins said. But as my husband, like all good husbands do, added a rider to it. So he said, the purpose of every living organism is to contribute to the growth and evolution of its species. And this is what my husband added. But as humans, we have the choice of deciding or figuring out and making it significant. So we have the choice to decide how that growth, the growth of our life can be. And I think the word that I'm looking for and I'm sharing with you is that incredible word called choice, which is something that is only available to us as human beings. Have you realized what this choice is? We do make choices, but sometimes we just give it up. So when you're talking of choice, I'm talking of the agency that deals with choice. The agency that deals with choice is our mind, right? The mind that is so powerful and yet can drag you down, right? The mind is something that, is it poison or is it nectar? Is it the door or is it the doorknob? Is it the key to your car or is it the carburetor, kachada in the carburetor? Is it sweet or salt? So these are questions that we need to keep asking ourselves. What is the mind telling you? Is the mind ruling you or are you ruling the mind? So like Rajinikanth said, mind it, mind the mind. So I believe that we must take control of this space, this ephemeral space that we call the mind, which tends to be so bombarded with so many other things from the outside. Because we are such goal-oriented people as human beings, we go from A to B so wonderfully with deadlines. But I also believe that especially you in the medical industry know so well that we go through two different doors as human beings, B and D. The door called birth and the door called death. We are in between it. as human beings, we are alive here. And we all know that we will come through this door and we will go out through that door. And this little time that we have here is ours to command, ours to control, ours to choose, and ours to drive in the most beautiful, exquisite way that we want it to be. And between those words B and D, those two doors between B and D, is the alphabet C. Not corona, not cancer, but choice. C for choice is my reading of how we need to look at life. And hence, I go back to my core strength point, is for you to add an art, to plant an art in your life. Plant an art. Music, dance, painting, sculpture, cooking, gardening, maths also, coding, whatever. But find that little space for yourself. In fact, I was telling someone the other day, even if you're a very, very bad bathroom singer, karo usko, just keep it going, because that will become your strength. Because when you plant an art, not necessarily that you'll be the next Lata Mangeshkar, but you could engage with it as a connoisseur, as a presenter, as a viewer, as a teacher. It doesn't matter. That will help you navigate the stresses of work-life balance, work, home, multitasking, etc., etc. All these things, it will help you. Because what art does, or for that matter, any passion does, for that matter, is it gives you extraordinary focus. A focus that doesn't come with normal education. It gives you extraordinary energy. It gives you creativity. It gives you the capacity to be able to look at what is really needed, in spite of all the clutter that surrounds it. It gives you intuition and perception. And most importantly, it gives you joy and happiness. Because creativity is life. And art is an easy pathway to creativity. I mean, in the medical field, you're all so creative in your own spaces. But this becomes your core strength. And that core strength is something that we all need to not just nurture for ourselves, but nurture in our children. In our obsession to get the best seats in the best colleges, we tend to negate this essential quality in our children. So that will help us break the biases also earlier, because when you do all these things, automatically all the negative energy that swirls around you gets dissipated. And coming back to speaking about, work-life balance, men, women, I'm of the opinion that, hey guys, we're just two people, just men and women. And it's only the women who can have babies, right? So let's not try and become a man. It's all right. Let's keep our femininity, keep our strengths. That's important. And you're always told that you need to sit at the table, you need to do this. Yes, all that is fine. But if you are needed at home, if your child is sick, well, priority, that has to be your first priority. There's no two ways around it. And I would believe that, arguing and fighting on those levels is just going to make us all very miserable. So don't get trapped in these binaries. These binaries, of I have to achieve. Yes, we all want to achieve. I have come a long way. But at the same time, how are you able to negotiate, prioritize, remanage, relook at every little part of your life in different spaces? I give you an example of, when we talk of work-life balance, it's like, is it always there? No, I look at it like, say, someone on a cycle. You're constantly moving, and hence you're in balance, right? If you're not moving, you're going to fall. Or like a trapeze artist, you see the movement happens inch by inch, and every movement continues the balance. And that is exactly, or for me, or for that matter, like a dancer. You're constantly moving, and hence we stay in balance. So with those thoughts, I leave you and wish you a very, very wonderful year, not just day, wonderful life, of being a wonderful human being, of raising grateful, well-nourished, children That's important. Teach your children gratitude. Teach your children how to be proud citizens. And more importantly, teach them how to be the best they can ever be. Because we are here for a short time. And this life, we need to do the best we can to go forward. And on that note, I thank you all once again. And I would like to end with a little shloka, which is actually a shloka from Shankaracharya. He talks about it is actually on the Ardhanarishvara, but it's a beautiful metaphor for what I'm trying to say about how we don't need to be binaries as men and women. We need to work hand in hand together, otherwise it's not a beautiful life. So he says, Champeya Gauradra Sharirakaya. He says, she's beautiful. She smells like the champa flower. Karpura Gauradra Sharirakaya is what he smells like a karpura. Dhammillakaya, she has a lovely juda. And Jatadaraya, he has long hair. And together they are Ardhanarishvara, Shiva and Parvati. And that is how we all are as human beings, together. Bringing our strengths, bringing our individual strengths, holding up each other, supporting each other, not falling into any bias, any narrative thrown at us, any binary narrative that is constantly bombarded at us. Fall back on your culture, fall back on your values, fall back on your art, fall back on the unsaid, collective unconscious that's swirling around us, and you will see that it's a beautiful life. Thank you very much.
To Guru, fellow colleagues on the dais, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know what retired diplomat is going to speak to a tired audience after three very eloquent speakers who were men and three very eloquent who were women. I'm the odd man out. So please bear with me. I had brought something written, but I've left it there because I think wisdom demands that I don't take my time. I promise you I won't take my full time. That said, I'm now a teacher, so I will start with a quiz. Identify this person. I give you 3 chances quickly. 1, 2, 3. I will get, options are coming, madam, don't worry. It's nice that you're excited. I will give you 3 chances with 3 clues. First clue is gone. I don't see anybody answering who is this lady. Okay? Demure, wears a sari, with a, pardon? No, ma'am, not as important, otherwise it wouldn't be an unknown pioneer. It started with an unknown pioneer. 1 chance gone, 2 left. 3 more, 3, 1, 2, 3. You have forgotten and lost the second chance. Unknown pioneer. She is not that unknown, see? Vice Chancellor. But you don't seem to know her. Right. My last chance. Get this right. I told you 3 important things that she did as a woman. And alas, you, pardon? No, ma'am, she's not from Hyderabad. It's like ghar ki murgi dal barabar dese. So not from Hyderabad, sir. She's not. I said Baroda, SNDT University. Among the 15 women who participated in India's Constituent Assembly. Come on, guys. As she said, I'm not muscular, macho, or mustachioed. Yet, please have mercy on me. All right, since you don't know. Have you heard of this name? Hansa Mehta. Hansa Mehta. After today, you're not going to forget her name. Right? Promise? Yes. I'll tell you why. What am I? After two other diplomats, I'm a diplomat by training. I'm a teacher now by just choice, I think. But that said, I'm a diplomat. So just see what she did now and why she is my hero.
We stand today at the threshold of a great event, both in the life of the United Nations and in the life of mankind. This Universal Declaration of Human Rights may well become the international Magna Carta.
The world can thank a daughter of India, Dr. Hansa Mehta, for replacing the phrase in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It said all men are born free and equal. Now it's changed. All human beings are born free and equal.
The dynamics in the United Nations changes radically during the years 1946 to 48, in which the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is being drafted, debated, and voted through different bodies in the United Nations. At the outset, the United States and France, they place a strong emphasis on earlier notions of the rights of man, articulated in their respective constitutions. India had already been a member of the United Nations by 1945 and had voted for the Charter that same year. But while gaining full independence in 1947, India sends a delegate to the Commission on Human Rights famous for having presented the national flag that same year on behalf of the women of India, Hansa Mehta. Eleanor Roosevelt has not reacted to the use of rights of man in the initial drafts, which is now brought to debate by Hansa Mehta. The preamble of the first draft reads, quote, "The General Assembly," and this might have been your preamble, "recognizing the fact that the United Nations has been established for the specific purpose of enthroning the natural rights of man, to freedom and equality before the law, and for upholding the worth and dignity of human personality." End quote. Hansa Mehta, the only female delegate in the Commission on Human Rights besides Eleanor Roosevelt, objects to the use of man in the draft, arguing that member states can use this to restrict women's rights rather than expand them, since women are not necessarily regarded as included by that wording.
One other person that was such a big influence on Eleanor Roosevelt was India's Hansa Mehta. For the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, it was Hansa Mehta who said, "Excuse me, Mrs. Roosevelt, if you say all men are created free and equal, around the world it will be all men, women not included." And so the words were changed to all human beings. That small change has had a tremendous impact. Women will be included everywhere. All human beings, men and women and children, have these rights.